welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's going to be our inaugural Blue Buddha Entertainment panel, AAPI, on navigating the entertainment industry. My name is Charles Levan, President CEO Blue Buddha here in Los Angeles. We're a sync agency firm, and so excited to be here. Thank you to our esteemed panelists and attendees. And also joining me as my co-host is Chase Walker, Blue Buddha coordinator and indie blues rock artist.
Hey, great to be here.
And without further ado, in the next hour, we're gonna shine a light on our esteemed panelists and their journey in the entertainment industry and learn from their path to success and learning about who and what shaped their career over the years. And today, we hope that this is the starting point of a dialogue about continuing the work of diversity and inclusivity to build leaders of tomorrow. And as an independent Vietnamese American business owner here in Los Angeles, community and collaboration are very important to me. So I'm really thankful to be able to collaborate with my fellow colleagues on the panel today. And as you know, as we all know in life, sometimes we need a little bit of luck, someone to open the door and give us that chance. So with that, Chase is going to introduce, we're going to have 3 topics for the panel today.
Yeah, so we're basically just going to do a roundtable kind of discussion, and we'll be covering AAPI identity and representation within the film and entertainment industry, as well as the music industry, and adapting to challenges and opportunities in the industry, as well as mentorship opportunities and any advice that you can give to, young AAPI people, seeking to get into this crazy business, right?
Indeed. And at the end, we'll save some time for Q&A with our esteemed panelists. And before we begin, let's see here. Just want to take a moment and acknowledge for their support some colleagues, executives attending from Black and White Music Supervision, Sony Pictures Television, Sony Music Publishing, Paramount Global, and also Warner Music Group. Thank you so much for your support. And of course, thank you to all of our attendees for your support of AAPI Month. And with that, we will get things rocking with the intros. So with that, I'm so honored and ecstatic to introduce our first panelist, a veteran of the industry, Rudy Chung. He's an executive on the music creative team at Netflix, and his team oversees music for original films, projects like The Adam Project, Hustle, The Gray Man, to name a few. And prior to joining Netflix, Rudy was a music supervisor and co-partner at Hit the Ground Running, and also a co-founder of the award-winning artist and composer agency Pusher. Rudy's also a proud member of the Guild of Music Supervisors and a 2-time GMS award winner. Welcome, Rudy.
Thanks, Charles. Hey, everybody. It's really good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Really good to reconnect, and gonna have some great stories to share. I've been in the biz as long as you have as well. And similarly, happy to introduce our next panelist, Angela Leus, SVP at Universal. And over the last decade, Angela has overseen music for all facets from film soundtracks to the marketing campaigns for Universal Pictures, DreamWorks Animation, and the affiliate production companies. Projects like Joe Coy's Easter Sunday, the Pitch Perfect franchise, Straight Outta Compton, Cocaine Bear, to name a few. And Angela is a member of the Recording Academy and also APA at NBC Universal and Universal Committee on Inclusion. So happy to have Angela here. Welcome, Angela.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Hey, everybody. Good morning. Happy Friday.
Yes, happy Friday. And it's May, but it feels like it's summer already, June, if the clouds will lift here in Los Angeles. But yeah, and with that, we have owner and CEO from Rogue Planet, Jacky Shu. And by way of Jersey, but Jacky's been here for a quick minute, so we consider an Angelino as well. But Jacky and her team at Rogue Planet responsible for film trailers, marketing campaigns such as Tetris, Emancipation, The Gray Man, Transformers, to name a few. And Jacky is also founder of two organizations, Spark and Soapbox Walk, which she'll tell us more about. How's it going, Jacky? Welcome.
Really good. These things make me sweat. So even though I look cool, I'm sweating buckets, Charles. It's cool. It's fine.
All good. No, going to be a great panel, and thank you for joining us.
Of course. Thanks for having me, everybody. Hi, morning.
Absolutely. And next, want to introduce actor and director Derek Basco, who you would have seen him on the big screen in the Star Wars universe in Obi-Wan Kenobi, and bring it back down to planet Earth films like Hawaii Five-0, The Mayor of Kingstown, NCIS Los Angeles, and most recently, he was in a comedy called The Fabulous Filipino Brothers, starring alongside the Basco brothers and his sister, Lady Ariana. And good morning, Derek. How's it going?
Good morning. Thanks for having me this morning, Charles. I'm really excited to be a part of this panel.
Thank you. No, we're gonna continue our chat from the other day on our podcast. So thank you again for joining us. Really happy. And next, happy to introduce a Blue Buddha indie artist, actress, musician, and filmmaker, Ella J. Basco. You would have seen her on screen in Grey's Anatomy, Birds of Prey, and most recently, she created a short film called Fox Eyes that unfortunately Ella couldn't make it at the last minute. So Derek is gonna bring us up to speed on her projects there on that front. But yeah, some great things to share. And last but not least, so excited to introduce the prolific MC, songwriter, rapper, and director hailing from the Bay Area, Rudy Ibarra, who her work has been synced, and you would have heard her in shows like Supreme Models on YouTube, NBA 2K23, and most recently, she, alongside the composers team, created original works for Fox's hit The Cleaning Lady. And her side project as well, which she's very active in that space, is she's co-founder of a scholarship program she'll tell us more about that has a focus upon arts, activism, and higher education. And welcome, Ruby. How's it going?
Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. So excited to be here. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this amazing panel. Thank you, Charles.
No, thank you. Can't wait to unpack all the great you have done over the years, and we're just getting started. So thank you so much. And with that, we will turn to Chase to introduce our first topic for the roundtable.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess this can kind of go to whoever wants to go first. But basically, tell us a little bit about your cultural heritage and how it ties with your AAPI identity in the entertainment industry, with respect to AAPI representation.
I'm sure there's a lot because I feel like a lot of us are the same age range. I'm gonna be a little generous to everybody that we're all the same age, right? Yeah, it's cool. I'm Chinese American and I'm first gen. And so I felt like when I was growing up, there was a lot of like creatives around me. Like I felt like, oh yeah, we all do art and we do like, some form of dance or whatever. But then when you get to college, or like any sort of higher education, everybody kind of drops off. So I went to school on the East Coast and I was kind of the only Asian doing anything in my field. So anything in marketing, I took a lot of Avid classes, a lot of editing classes, those kind of things. And I was the only one. So when I looked around, there wasn't a lot of people that looked like me. So it was really difficult to understand like what my background meant and how that would mold me in the future. I didn't have anybody else to talk to be like, how did you grow up? And like, or anybody that was even slightly older than me that was like, how does this affect like how you get a job? And what I did know was in entertainment, it's all about pipelines, right? So if you know somebody, you don't even really need to go to school, let's be honest. You just need to have an uncle that's in the business. And I learned that really early on. And I think when it came down to it, especially in entertainment, and I'm sure it happens all over, it was really difficult for me to find that pipeline. I happen to ride the coattails of a white guy, so I completely understand and acknowledge my privilege in doing that. But I feel like one of the really important things is for us to really open our heritage up to the younger generation, because I didn't have that. Well, I was the only one. And so most of my peers, everybody, they were white. So I know this is like the answer to this question, but I'd love to hear what everyone else has to say about like how you feel like, your background and your history ties into, what you guys do.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Jacky, I feel you. Like and we are in the same kind of like generational, like around the same age. Being the only one is interesting, and I think also just because I'm from the Bay Area, and in addition to kind of being the only one when I went to college or that looked like me, just even leaving the Bay Area. So Filipino, like I'm first gen Filipino American, and like in our family, and I'm sure with other, Filipinos that can attest, like it's like, especially in the Bay Area, like you don't leave. And even me going to Los Angeles was like, I might as well have moved like to Paris or something, because like my family was like, why are you going away? And also like, what is this thing that you're doing? Music supervision. Like, I mean, I'm 42 now, but I just feel like my mother maybe 2 years ago can actually now explain what I do. But for the longest time, it was like, you work in like, why don't you come back and work at Pixar? Like all of that. So even just paving the way for my family, like I was the first one to like go away to college, and then all my cousins saw that they could do that as well, or they just felt comfortable doing that, so then they were able to spread their wings and like go away and experience life outside of the Bay Area bubble that I lived in. And so going back to not having a lot of people that looked like me, it's just an interesting thing, because I just kind of had to figure it out. And I guess I had the wherewithal to just do it, and not having that mentor, that AAPI mentor who understood what I, was going through, a female, first gen Filipino American. It's like, that's why I think it's really important for now in this day and age for us to do things like this, and mentorship programs, to be able to show others, especially from a really, young age. It's not just about like the professional like level, but like, elementary school mentorship, high school mentorship, to provide that kind of path for people.
Yeah, absolutely, Angela. And to thread that needle, and as we continue this, similarly, I think, I started at Capitol Records in the 90s, and then the assumptions like, oh, you must be in the finance or accounting gig. You're not a creative, and then looking around the room, what was comforting, to you, Rudy and Angela, as we'd see each other at events, and we've been in the industry for a minute. And now, as far as on the creative side, those numbers of, like you said, Angela, the mentorship and just creating a pathway forward. But I think, Ruby, you could thread that needle with Angela, because tell us about your experiences in the Bay Area, and then your first record circa 91 when you released that. Would love to hear that side.
Absolutely. And I think so far, Jacky and Angela have definitely brought up some great points in, asking ourselves. And when we reflect on that question, like, what if there was someone that looked like me in the field that I was working in, and kind of, reflecting on that, my own personal music journey so far, and how every time I would be on a hip hop lineup or shows or an events, and even now when I find myself in spaces that I've never been in before, I am recognizing that there are less Asian American and specifically Filipino American faces every time I look left and right. And, granted, I think that tides are changing and we're seeing a lot more visibility from different AAPI communities. I think that we're still very much behind, though, and there's still a lot of progress that needs to happen. And to your question, Charles, about my identity in my music, for the folks that are familiar with my music, I'm now in a point in my career where my culture, my heritage, my background informs everything about my music. The storytelling that's and the topics that I choose to talk about in my songs are directly about my own immigrant experiences, having migrated from the Philippines to the US, but also specifically my parents' experiences, because as a lot of us know, as much as AAPI voices and stories have been underrepresented, I think a lot of it has also been misrepresented and erased. And especially thinking about the older generation, I think oftentimes, when our parents can't necessarily explain or describe the jobs that we're in the creative fields, I think for a lot of them, it's because it's completely new territory and something that they never thought would have been possible. When we think about what is possible, there has to be an example already set before us. And when there is that void that exists, and when we're finally in a place where we recognize that there's this void that's existed all this time, I think it's kind of, a wake-up call in us realizing that, wow, like, what if there were more AAPI artists in the 90s? What if there were more AAPI MCs that were on the radio or on TV? How much more confident would I be now in my career? How much more powerful would I feel when I'm on stage? And I think that goes to show, the power of representation and how very much important it is for especially the next up and coming generation of AAPI artists, for them to see themselves, to be able to kind of give that confidence, but also that reassurance that they belong exactly where they are.
No, 100%, 100%. Couldn't echo it more. And similarly, and thank you for that, Ruby, very on point. And so, Rudy, when you starting at Hit the Ground Running back in the day, similarly, what was sort of your path and trajectory? I had never heard how you first got into the biz.
How I like a lot of people, I started as an intern. Probably I wasn't paid at the time, to an assistant, to a coordinator, just kind of scrapping. But what everyone has just said, I can so relate to. I grew up Korean American, born and raised in Detroit. And when I wanted to work in the music business, my parents had it was not even within the realm of possibility. So moving to LA, I moved to LA without a job, wanting to work in music. My parents basically made me take the LSAT as a backup, because in their mind, it was like, if you're not a doctor or a lawyer, we don't understand what it is you do. So I took the LSAT as kind of like an insurance policy to come out to LA to work, try to find a job for a couple of years. And Ruby, I can't even imagine if I wanted to become an artist or an MC, like that's even on another level. At least I told my parents I wanted to work in the music business. And for, for 16 years, I was a music supervisor. My parents had no idea what I did. I think I joined Netflix about 3 years ago. They're like, oh, okay. you have a real job. But it took about almost 20 years to get there. You know, I think like a lot of us, when I was starting out, it was a very, very different landscape. You know, I didn't see anyone that was Asian American in fields of like, you know, senior level management. So I think I took a lot of my inspiration in our peers. You know, I look at you, Charles, Angela, who I've known for almost 20 years, like all kind of coming up together. I felt like there was a lot of inspiration that I got from just seeing people start around the same time I did, because I didn't see people running record companies or, you know, working at studios in the music department that were people of color. And it's really difficult starting out when you just have nothing, like no one to relate to in that sense. And I feel like nowadays it's what's really encouraging is like I'm having kids in high school and college, at the college level, reach out who are Asian American, who are, you know, hoping to speak about, you know, what my experience was and offer words of advice. And I feel like I'm so grateful to see us doing this panel, and for people who have been doing this for a while to be able to just speak about our experiences and hopefully connect with people that are coming up now, because I feel like I didn't have that coming up.
Yeah, no, thanks for threading that needle, because I think that'll bookend at the end. We'll talk about mentorships, and then similarly, Derek, if you could speak to, you know, if you with your path into acting, we're also from the Bay Area, and then, you know, LJ's career. So if you want to touch on that.
Yeah, sure. I'm from the Bay Area, a small town called Pittsburgh, California. And it's weird. I'm Filipino. I had a little different experience than everyone else because my mother, she just put us in all these lessons in like, what is it, like karate, music lessons, all sorts of things without realizing that she was cultivating a bunch of artists. So I come from an artist family. My brother Dante Basco was Rufio. He directed the movie Fabulous Filipino Brothers. So if what I'm trying to say is that the pathway into the arts was just kind of what we did, but we didn't see representation. So we didn't see anyone like us. So it was hard. So throughout our career, we weren't allowed to say that we were Filipino because too many people would look at us and say, oh, he's Hispanic like me, or he's Japanese like me, or he's Chinese like me. And what I really like about today is that the kids, like my daughter, Ella J. Basco, she's half Korean and half Filipino. She's able to claim everything that she is. So times are a little different, which is nice. And she's able to put all of that into her work. So her music is very specific and talks about her experience being a Korean American and also being a Filipino American. So I think the opportunities are great, you know, are expanding, like Ruby said, you know, but there's still a challenge. We still need more representation out there. And it's still tough sometimes being the first ones, you know. There are still people out there that don't know what a Filipino is, you know, and thanks to people like Joe Coy, her, and other celebrities that are out there, it's starting to, people are starting to understand what it is. So I think times are changing, and the future is bright for the new generation, like my daughter.
Yeah, can I just say too, in terms of representation, you know, when I was growing up, first of all, I love that there's so many Filipino Americans from the Bay Area. I'm like, yeah, representing today. But, you know, your brother like was one of the only, I was just thinking back, like in terms of when I was growing up, who I saw in entertainment, like who I saw on the screen, I can't even think of like really anybody besides your brother who like kind of looked like me, right? And now you have like, you know, I just posted it the other day, but like Sesame Street just introduced the first Filipino you know, character, right? And then you've got I don't know, people like Simu Liu and like Henry Golding, and like, you know, you're seeing more people up on screen. And, you know, having worked on Easter Sunday, it was really great to, you know, talk to some of my friends whose kids were, you know, of like mixed ethnicity, who actually came to their parents and said like, oh, that kid up on screen, like, mom, that he's like me. So to be able to see, I mean, look, we there's always work to be done. It obviously can be better, but it's such like a world of difference from like when, you know, I was growing up. So it's like promising.
No, 100%, Angela. And Derek, we were talking about this the other day, you know, we're about the same age and coming up as far as, you know, who was our on screen. We would look to Bruce Lee, you know, on the TV film side. You know, in sports, it was minimal. But, you know, I think that's a good through line, Angela, what you just talked about. And Ruby, I wanted to turn the mic to you. If you could talk about, you know, your work and on the cleaning lady. And I know between the music supervisor, the creator, and individuals behind the camera, as far as representation, that's a good blueprint of what's happening with that great show. And correct, it's coming back for a third season.
Yes, it's just been announced that season 3 is coming soon, so definitely very excited. And I think, you know, what the cleaning lady has done in terms of, you know, pioneering for network television and what it means to really represent AAPI families in an authentic way. Is that they've done it so beautifully, and at the same time also respectfully with regards to what an authentic experience looks like. I think, you know, when we talk about representation, sometimes the meaning and kind of the mission kind of gets lost. I hope that, you know, we don't conflate it with, you know, trying to meet a quota or just trying to make sure that we see AAPI faces on screen, because that's great. But I also want to remind ourselves, like, at the end of the day, what is the goal here? What is it that we're trying to accomplish? And I think, you know, representation is more than just having an X amount of faces on screen, but more so having the people own and create the stories, having the same amount of AAPI also behind the camera and also in the rooms that are making the decisions. I think that's really where we're going to make the most impact, is that not only are we the ones writing the stories, but we're the ones owning and controlling it. Because I feel like if we're out here with the mission to want to have more visibility for ourselves and represent ourselves, it definitely needs to be done in an authentic way. And so when I think of shows like, you know, The Cleaning Lady, I think they've done a great job in showcasing different elements of, you know, not only the Filipino American experience or the Cambodian American experience, but also just the immigrant experience in general, you know, whether that's themes that tie into family relationships, immigration, of course, but also just kind of like the day-to-day struggles that a lot of our parents or our aunties and uncles go through. And again, like I was talking about earlier, you know, we're seeing this growth of representation, but I want to see more, you know, perspectives from like the 50-year-old Asian mom, or even the 70-year-old Asian grandma. What's their experience like, and having to navigate through spaces here in America. And I'm definitely blessed to be part of a show like The Cleaning Lady. And it's been such an incredible experience so far, Charles, with making the music too. I remember when I first got on board, they initially just wanted to use one of my songs, Us, for episode 1. And as the conversation grew, they asked me if I wanted to make original music for the entire series. So my songs now, I've written songs now for a multitude of episodes for the show. And it's been such a great experience to work directly with the music supervisors and also the composer of the show. I think for me as an artist, just thinking about it from the musical perspective too, it's given me an entirely new experience to be able to kind of think outside the box and not necessarily at this moment write songs that are a reflection of my experiences, but be able to kind of storytell from someone else's perspective. And that's been challenging and at the same time very fun and creative in the same way.
No, amazing, amazing. Can't wait to see where the story arc continues. And because I think your first record really, you know, it's your storytelling as a first generation Filipino American and how your song synced up to a myriad of shows. Similarly, just want to thread that before we turn the mic to Jacky to talk about Spark and Soapbox Walk. Ruby, you were it was Taste the Nation. You were in an episode. If you want to talk about that and what that was like.
I'm so glad that you bring that up. Yeah, I was recently in season 2 of Hulu's show Taste the Nation, hosted by Padma Lakshmi. And I was actually specifically in episode 6 where they came out to the Bay Area. Again, big shout out to the Bay. And they did a absolutely beautiful feature on Filipino American cuisine here in the Bay Area, where they interviewed a local nurse and local restaurants and chefs here. And again, they did it in such a respectful way that really honored the community and also honored the culture. And with, having been on the show and seeing, these conversations, not only on music, but also how do we expand beyond that, but also bring to light, Filipino or Asian American cuisine on the mainstream platform. I think what that's essentially doing is it's normalizing, these aspects of our culture. I think, for so long, a lot of our AAPI identities have still been seen as, something foreign or seen as the other. And now when we get to see our music, our movies, our food on these big platforms, I think at the end of the day, what that's doing is it's not only normalizing ourselves and actually, thinking about it being AAPI Heritage Month. I think what's so great about the celebration is we're celebrating our Asian American cultures and heritages in our communities, but I think it's also serves as a reminder that Asians here are also Americans. We have been Americans and we've been part of the story and part of the history here. And not only is it normalizing, when we have shows like Taste the Nation, but I think ultimately it's also an introduction for a lot of people. I think like Derek mentioned earlier, when there's people out there that still don't know what a Filipino American is. And luckily we have, these shows like The Cleaning Lady and Taste the Nation and films like The Fabulous Filipino Brothers, which are a great entryway to introduce people to our culture and our community.
Yeah, no, huge props. And, because I think similarly to your point, if anyone jumps in on this as well, it's sort of like when K-pop blew up, everyone just says, oh, Asian music is associated with K-pop and that's it. But like you said, I'm of Vietnamese descent, so Vietnamese music, Chinese music, Korean music, there's the whole melting pot, and it's, what the mainstream media, so to speak, portrays, and then we just get pigeonholed under one element.
This is like neither here nor there, but sort of tag teaming on that.
Sure.
I don't know if you guys had the same visceral reaction, but when Harold and Kumar came out, it was like the first time I had seen, first of all, that coupling in a major, studio movie. I cried, even though it's a movie about two stoners looking for freaking White Castle, right? But it was the first time that I saw that type of representation. Sure, we had Bruce Lee, and everybody knows that everyone's obsessed with, Dante Basco, which I'm going to try to really suppress because like his brother's here and like, let's be cool about it. But like, those were what we had, and they were very, very specific. But seeing those two guys on screen big time, I remember having like a crazy reaction to that. And again, two stoners like looking for hamburgers. But I realized, I don't think it's until you get older, I think when you're young and you're first gen and you're still sort of like pretending that you blend in, you suppress a ton of stuff. I'm not different. I am just the same. I am just gliding by. And then you have, I'm sure we all have it, you have like a moment where you go like, oh shit, I am this whole thing that I have never really felt before. I've never really seen before. I've never really felt important enough to understand what it means to feel important. And that was I remember feeling like a weird reaction to being like, it's like such a weird feeling. Like, why is it such a big, a big emotional event for me? And then you realize like, oh crap, I had never seen that before. So shout out to Harold and Kumar because it was, and I remember just wanting to dump money into that movie, right? Like, go watch it, dump money. And I still do that. Any sort of POC movie, any sort of LGBTQ plus movie, those kind of things, like dump money into it. Small businesses, whatever. I just remember having like that. That was the first time I think that I realized I've been missing this whole aspect of my life, which was representation.
So yeah, so that said, do you want to talk about the two organizations, Spark and Soapbox Walk?
I just told you, it makes me sweat when you.
You talk about one of them then.
Yeah, Spark. So so I'm a founding member of Spark and Soapbox Women of Color. So Soapbox and Margaret has been a huge advocate for Soapbox as well, and it's just one of those smaller communities that was really sort of non-male based, and we wanted to find like sort of an even more niche area where we felt safe, and so we created a Women of Color smaller sort of side group where we can sort of just let loose and open and feel safe. And it's been really awesome. Soapbox also has a Soapbox Moms, which I've also been a part of, and that's really nice. Just being a mom or a parent in general and a woman is a lot, and then add a woman of color. So it's a really great area to just sort of feel safe. But Spark is something that we created right after George Floyd. We felt like we really wanted to do something. And what's unique about Spark is it's basically 4 of us from different agencies. So normally in the real world, we're battling all the time. We're competing. We all talk shit about each other. We look at our stuff and we go like, I could have done it better. But in this amazing group, I found 3 other people, and used to be a couple more, but we're all from different agencies. And the idea is that it doesn't really matter. We can compete with projects, that's fine. But when you're talking about like D&I and inclusion and representation, we all have to figure out how to band together and make things better. And so Spark is really interested in bringing people together and figuring out how we can do better for the future, and education. So we go to like schools. We started going to high schools and doing panels like these and saying like, here are jobs that you can have. You don't have to be a professional athlete. You don't have to be a director or a writer. These are big goals and you should have them, but you can also be a music supervisor, and you can also be a graphics person. You like playing with music? Cool. Be a composer. Like, there are so many assets to our industry, whether it is music or marketing or film or whatever. I think kids nowadays just think, I have to be a director. That's my only goal. Dude, how happy is everybody here with what it is that they're doing because they found that path? And it was so hard for us to do that because we didn't have somebody to tell us, you don't have to be this huge idea that you have that you might not be into. I remember being in marketing and all they did was like, you be an editor, be a director. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not skilled enough for that. But there wasn't anything else that anybody was saying. So when somebody was like, you can also be a producer, I was like, I like being bossy and tell my ideas to somebody and then they just do them. That's amazing. I don't have the skills to actually do them, but like, I'm an ideas person. So, but how long did it take me to even realize that that thing was a job, you know? So Spark is really interested in, and also not just higher education, right? Not just going to colleges, because by college, you've already lost them. They've already, it's great, go to college, obviously. But in this industry, you don't really have to. So let's get them before, let's really explain what this industry is about. And that's kind of like what Spark pushes, is just this like love of this industry. Do you like movies or music or whatever it might be? Let us help you find like a mentor or put you in a headspace where like, you don't have to freak out every time you think about the future. It can look attainable to you.
Okay, no, that's actually, thank you for breaking that down, because I think that's the good through line to the next topic that as far as mentorship programs go, Angela and Rudy, I'm curious to get your guys' perspective, what you're seeing, on the studio side. So whoever wants to take that, what programs are out there as far as inclusivity and pushing the needle there.
I can go, and I know Angela, Universal's has been in this space for many years. But at Netflix, we had in our inaugural cycle of youth mentoring with a local high school that's literally next door to our offices, and it was our music team, several executives from our music team doing one-on-one mentorships with high school students, and it was kind of, Jacky, just like what you're speaking about. A lot of these students at this age just don't know the pathways or know what the opportunities are out there. You talk to them about a career in music, they automatically think it's only being an artist or only being a record producer. And what we're trying to do is inspire and also just show like there are many, many ways of making a living through working in a creative field, not even just music, but there's multiple aspects in the general creative ecosystem that you can find to really match your skill sets. It's okay, Jacky, it's a rated R. It was a really, really great thing. We really responded to the fact that these students were literally next door to our building, so it was something very much as part of our community. We're going to do it again next year. We have a meeting later today with our mentoring partnership. We partnered with a company called Youth Mentoring. We're a Los Angeles based like grassroots mentoring program who've been around for about 30 years.
Okay.
And we're also developing a music supervisor development program for music supervisors of color that will be starting next year. We're building the program now. And that's a much more professional pipeline focused program. So it's working music supervisors, people who have between 2 and 3 years of being a music coordinator or music supervision experience on their own, who are ready to take the next level, and they will attend and participate in a 10-week intensive training program with the idea that they can be hired by Netflix or other productions, that they're just better sort of mentored and professionally developed through a program like that.
Very cool. No, because same way my path as a sync agent, it was sort of, to your point, Rudy, it's sort of like if no one's there to open those doors or set the table for you to learn. And I interviewed Casey, aka Spilkus, the other day. We were just talking about, we just figured it as we went along. There was no blueprint, no template. But no, that sounds really amazing, Rudy, and would love to chat more about that on offline. But Angela, tell us on the Universal side, I know you're active in 2 organizations.
Yeah, like speaking on the kind of like, the thread line of like early professional development, something that we at Universal are really proud of is the Composers Initiative, which is the first of its kind at any studio, in which we teamed with our NBC Universal diversity group to basically form an initiative where it's basically an application process for composers, for BIPOC composers who are at a certain level, who are, like they're at the level where they're doing maybe additional music and orchestrating with like composers, or they've done a bunch of shorts or indie films, but they really need that, that not only guidance, but, kind of connective tissue in terms of how do I do it? Who do I talk to? It's a 2-year process, and I'm part of the selection committee, and our group, we're now in our second iteration of it, which is just finishing, and it's so hard. I mean, I remember when we first started, the final group was supposed to be, I don't know, six people, and there was just so much talent out there that we had to increase the number to 10. And I will say, even if these applicants don't make it to the final, group, it's such an amazing, process to be able to, through the process and meeting a lot of these aspiring composers. I mean, we just get connected to them anyways. So just being able to talk to them, because, we do like an interview process as well, is just really amazing. And the final group ends up, we kind of connect them with different filmmakers and roundtables. Nice. And, agents. And, we do look to the pool to be able to pitch these composers for a lot of, NBCU and Universal Film Group projects, whether it's marketing spots or shorts or, like films and whatnot. So it's a really, I think, really great initiative that we have, which has really led to, I want to say, especially from the first class, like every single one of the composers went on to compose for a larger level project for our company. So we're really proud about that one. Yeah.
No, that's amazing. I would love, Angela, and then anything we can share on our website. You know, in addition, we're going to have full bios of all panelists up on the Blue Buddha site, and then Rudy, Angela, any programs that you discuss. Same with you, Jacky. We can thread that, have it on our site. But thanks, Angela. That's actually a good segue. You know, for Derek, if you wanted to touch briefly on, I know that Ella J had produced Fox Eyes, a short film, and I think overall, you know, Chase and I were hosting a mini panel the other day, and we see a lot of creatives, whether it's composers or songwriters, but they're looking for collaborations. Someone's like, hey, I'm a singer, but I'm not in touch with an engineer or someone to create my track, or I'm looking for it to sync it to a project. So Derek, with Fox Eyes, the other day we spoke about it, and tell us, you know, for Ella, she also scored it, and yeah, what was the story on that?
Well, Ella, she made this short film called Fox Eyes, and it's about the social appropriation of slanted eyes that all these influencers were doing, and it was a racist thing, and so she created a short film around that. And she collaborated with another student, and it was tough, you know, working with him. So then we reached out to some composers that we knew, and we just didn't have the time, or we didn't have the money. And so last minute, she ended up scoring it herself. And she learned a lot through doing that, and she gained that confidence and to say that she could score something. You know, it was a new avenue for her. Writing and directing was a new avenue for her, but also scoring something to the emotion that she felt. Because I mean, everyone here knows that a good piece of music will either bring you more into the story or just take you out completely. So she's only 16 and she's learning these skills. And you know, what I really love about this panel is there's so many people out there of AAPI heritage that we don't know about, you know what I mean? And just having you guys here and seeing the mentors and the faces, it does show that it's possible, you know? So that struggle for her, I really wish she was here today, but she had to go to school. You know, her struggle with that, I think with seeing everyone here, I think that would help her a lot, you know?
No, we miss her, and we'll get her on the next one. But no, thanks for, you know, I think as with a look at the time, advice for new AAPIs entering the space, that was sort of our final topic. You know, a lot of us have been in biz for a minute. Some are, you know, with new entrants, some of the attendees in the room here. What would be your one piece of advice in navigating the industry? There are mentorship programs out there, and I'll just flip that out there. Ruby, actually, that if you want to take that one, because that ties in with your work on the scholarship program side.
Yeah, of course. I just want to say, you know, this just reminds me, our conversation so far, of really how important and significant and needed, you know, mentorship is. Because for us who have been on this path in our career and have been doing it for years now, we all know, you know, it's a roller coaster ride. It's not an easy path. It's an ongoing journey. There's the highs and the lows constantly. And to have, you know, that, whether it's a mentor or even a program or a space to access to resources, it's so valuable, and it makes the path a lot less difficult, a lot less challenging. And I think, you know, if we can make it easier for the next batch of creatives, that really is, you know, I think the best legacy that we can kind of leave behind. And so for me, with the Pinay's Rising program, I co-founded it with a professor here at San Francisco State University named Dr. Allison Tintianco Cobales. And we started it back in 2018. It came because at that time, my song Us had just been released, and we were getting such positive, you know, reception for the music video and also for the record. And, you know, I had to kind of sit down and ask myself, you know, with the success of the song, with the success of the Circa 91 record, what is it that I hope to, really gain out of music as an artist, and what kind of conversation are we starting also with the music? I recognize that I've gotten a lot of the opportunities that I've had in my career because of people that believed in me, because of people that actually wanted to just reach out and help me, and open the door for me and give me access to these opportunities that I could have only dreamed of. And I think the best way that I can kind of continue that path is to kind of pay it forward. And so I had a discussion with Dr. Allison from SF State, and we asked ourselves, what do we want to do in terms of providing resources for the next generation in our community? And we were both in agreement that education has played such a large part in our lives. I know for me, when I was a young immigrant kid and my family had just moved from the Philippines, I learned how to read, write, and speak English because of books. I remember reading Shel Silverstein's Where the Sidewalk Ends. That was my very first introduction to poetry. And I think from that moment on in elementary school, I knew that I wanted to become a writer. And I understand that for a lot of young, children of color, a lot of young AAPI creatives, it really is, finances and resources that kind of present themselves as one of the main challenges, whether that's not having enough resources to be able to buy your own equipment if you're starting out, video equipment, recording equipment. I know for me, I saved all my lunch money when I was back in middle school so that I can buy a microphone and plug it into the back of my computer. And I started recording songs in that way. But, I recognize that not a lot of students out there aren't afforded that same kind of, opportunity or luxury to be able to have an extra amount of money to be able to save and invest, in their career. And so for us, what we do at Pinay's Rising is we give out $500 scholarship awards annually to self-identifying Filipino American students who are artists, but also involved in activism. They use their art as a means to uplift their community and to encourage and embrace their culture. And at the same time, these are students who are also in the process of being in higher education and wanting to kind of also give back to their community. So, with Pinay's Rising, if y'all know any young students who are involved in the arts and also activism, we're about to actually open up our next round of applications. So I'm going to type the link in the chat, actually, pinaysrising.org. And I just want to briefly say, too, I'm also part of this amazing program called Bay Area Creative Foundation, where we also give out financial aid scholarships for young creatives and musicians. And we just actually finished this round this year. And oh my gosh, there's so much incredible young AAPI talent out there, from classical piano musicians to singers to songwriters. And I think, just being introduced to all this plethora of young AAPI talent again makes me so excited to see what's to come.
Yes, no, I'm really ecstatic to have everybody on the panel, and it's just the beginning of the dialogue. And chatting with Derek and Casey, they're doing a podcast. I think what's important from this initial step is to continue the work throughout the year, meeting face to face, press the flesh, so to speak, because it's easy. We get life happen, work happens, and connecting the dots afterwards is critical. But advice-wise, Angela and Rudy, from the industry side, would love to hear, your perspective, one nugget for AAPIs entering the entertainment space.
I think for me, really, it's like just getting yourself out there. I think that, as well as really doing all that you can to learn about the craft that you want to do. So specifically for those who, want to be music supervisors, I know the Guild of Music Supervisors have, I think it's like an associate level, or I'm sure I'm misspeaking about it, but a specific level in which you can join to get to know more about music supervision. And there's also a lot of music supervision classes, which I know, Rudy, you have taught in the past. and in terms of like, learning more about what you want to do, and then just like getting yourself out there. What's interesting is I feel like more often than not, when I am approached, when I get an email from someone who just reaches out to me blindly, who wants to set up like an informational, I always say yes. And I always encourage people to do that. Like, what's the worst that can happen is you don't get a response or whatever, but like putting yourself out there, I think is really, really important. Just to kind of, form more connections, and a lot of it, unfortunately, in this industry is about who you know, right? Like, and so I think having that, kind of inroads with people like Rudy and I, or anyone on this panel, I think is really important.
Yeah, no. Rudy?
Yeah,
Thanks.
definitely plus one to that. I also think that we're just in a really exciting time where before, like a lot of us were speaking about our backgrounds, we kind of didn't really acknowledge in our work. We were so focused on just like getting a job and getting, mentorship from somebody, anybody. But I feel like nowadays things have changed to the point where like our experiences and our backgrounds are actually like our superpower, where we should be leaning into those experiences. And I think that the type of content that's being made now, we're really viewing the diversity of our creative people on those projects to be a benefit and something that helps us tell our stories authentically. And I just never felt that way 10 years ago, 15 years ago when we were starting out. But with shows now with like, The Cleaning Lady or Beef, or like any of these like shows that are being made at a very high level, the cast and crew on these shows, like everyone that's making this content are very I think deliberately aware that they want cast and crew to reflect the stories that are being told. So I would just like not think of your background and experiences as anything else other than a benefit to you, which is such an exciting thing to think about in 2023, when before, at least for me starting out, it was not really a part of my identity. I was just trying to find whatever work was at hand, and I think times have changed, which is great.
Yeah, no, spot on, Rudy. And I think you can attest to this. And same with you, Angela. We've been in the biz long enough, and sort of, the promise when folks are like, hey, get into sync, it's easy competition wise. And then you see folks, let's write songs that are sync friendly, but they're not authentic. The storytelling is not there. And, I think that's what's so powerful, Rudy, about your songs, and then seeing you play live. I mean, your influences from hip hop to Rage Against the Machine, just 100% all in with the lyrics, the vocals, and the storytelling. So that ties in what you said, Rudy. And no, thanks. That's a great point. And Jacky, as far as your bit of what would your advice be, on entering the industry?
I think it's really funny. I think, more recently, which I just think it's rad. There's actually, I would say flood loosely, but I almost think there's a flood of Asian Americans that are coming into our industry because there has been a lot of us strategically placed in sort of building those pipelines. Again, I use flood loosely. There's like 4 new kids. So I'm like, whoa. But I think that's awesome. We need to cultivate that. I think the issue is when you do open those doors and we want to take in mentees and we want to do all this work, but we're also really exhausted. So as a mentee, as somebody who's coming in, or as somebody like the newer generation, I always find like, do your homework. Like I get a lot of emails, like a lot. I get a lot of, I'm looking for a job emails. Everyone's looking for a job emails, but I'm not going to read that email if you haven't done your due diligence, which means who am I? What's my name? What's my business? What have I done? Like, it's just, we all know this because I think we hustled, and it was much harder for us. And kids nowadays have gone through a ton. I mean, they basically think that they're going to die every 10 minutes. It's not an easy life for them. But that being said, because there's so many of them coming in, like my big advice is like, stand out, like, and it doesn't have to be like, I have this big personality and I'm this like, hot shot or whatever. Even if you aren't an extrovert, do your due diligence in when you are talking to this person, understanding why you are here, who is this person, you know, and honestly, like, I think what sometimes the translation gets lost, because I have heard kids nowadays, quote unquote, don't want to work. I don't think that that's true. I just don't think that they understand what that looks like now for them. So advice wise, you know, I can't even think of the word because I haven't slept in 8 years, but, you know, for me, flattery goes a long way.
Yeah.
Flattery goes a long way. And it's not just flattery. It's me understanding that you will put in the work. You don't have to be this big personality, but for people who are brown and black and LGBTQ, for marginalized communities, it doesn't take that much for us to stand out because there's not that many of us. So just be yourself and make sure that when you're putting yourself out there, that it's completely you. And you know, that the person that you're sitting across from understands what love you have for whatever job you're applying for. And take the help. Like, there's not that many of us, but we're trying so hard to open these doors for newcomers. And I say kids, but you know, it doesn't have to be. Take the help. If somebody reaches out their hand, like, take it. And vice versa, once you get somewhere, keep that pipeline open.
Yeah.
That's how white guys have been doing it for generations. That's why they have an uncle in every studio and they don't got resumes. I've never seen a resume. That's why we need to just like level the playing field. And that takes a whole lot of work from us, which sucks because we're exhausted, especially women of color. But we have to just have to keep doing it, because that's what's going to change. It's not going to change for us. It's already kind of too late. But our whole thing, especially with Spark, is like, what is this going to look like in 10 years? What is it going to look like in 20 years? And that's like bigger picture stuff.
No. Couldn't agree more. And thank you. And out of respect for everybody's time, I know we're going a little over, but I was going to open a couple Q&As. Panelist wise, are you guys going to hang out for a little bit extra? Okay. Cool. All right. So thank you so much. I appreciate that. And if anyone has any questions for our esteemed panelists, you can raise your hand, and then Chase will have you pose a question.
I have a question, but it's direct to another panelist. Derek, I'd love to ask you also, because a lot of people here, a lot of the panelists here, and I'm sure a lot of people that are here have kids, and your kids are kind of awesome. I do want to know, like, as a parent, how to cultivate that kind of creativity, and not over muddle it with race and heritage, but also to, like, you know, to make sure that that's an important part of the conversation.
You know, it's interesting, like, my wife and I, we didn't set out to make them artists. We just presented everything to them, and whatever their interest was. Sometimes it's soccer. Okay, so we're gonna go all in on soccer. Sometimes it's baseball. Like, my son right now is really focused on baseball. We just kind of let them choose. But there is some part, being an Asian parent, it's like, you know, I got you a bass, you're gonna have to practice every week, and oh, I want to quit. And then after, you know, like 2 or 3 years, it kind of flipped where they're practicing all the time. They're creating music, but it's a fine line, you know, of supporting them and figuring out what they want to do. And then now balancing schoolwork, like Ella today had to make a decision, like, I really need to be at school today because I haven't been at school all week because it's Asian American, you know, Hawaiian, Pacific Islander month. And she's like, I've been to all these events. Something's got to give. I got to work on school. And so it's tough. You know, I mean, there is no blueprint. You know, I look at my mom, she kind of like let us do what we wanted, you know. But I think just being encouraging and then talking to your kids, saying, what do you want to do? And how can we figure out how to do that? And if I don't know how to do it, like if one of my kids wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer, I'd be like, I don't know how to do that, but let's go find somebody that will help you do it. So that's what we do, is like, they want to play something, we seek out masters to teach them. They have a voice teacher, Kyle Puccia. They have a music teacher, Malcolm Moore. They have a guitar teacher. They, you know, whatever they want, we like try to seek out masters to help them. And that's what I love about this panel is that there's a lot of masters here who are offering help and saying, hey, the new generation, you're out there, come knock on my door, but be prepared for the hard work, because it is hard work.
No, thank you, Jarek. And I think we'll thread that. Looks like we have a question from Erica, and thanks for your question. I'm going to ask you to unmute and yeah, go for it.
Okay, hi. I'm a first year in college, so I'm one of like the young people or the kids that you guys have been addressing this entire time. This question is kind of geared towards Angela and Rudy, but anyone can answer if you have something to chime in on. But it's just because I'm more interested in like the industry aspect or the business aspect of the entertainment industry. And I was wondering, like, you guys have given a lot of advice and like just ideas about what programs to go into and stuff like that. But what is one like kind of mentorship experience that you personally have had like in your journey that's helped you a lot? And like, what is your kind of advice for maintaining those kinds of relationships?
I was very fortunate in that I had a mentor. His name is Jason Alexander, and I started out, as I said earlier, as his intern and turned into his assistant, and then later became his business partner, and we were partners for about 16 years. That was a very unique relationship in that, you know, he was incredibly selfless with taking on, like becoming partners with his intern. And that was a long sort of partnership and mentorship, and someone that I'm still very close with today. He lives in the UK, but we're actually chatting next week. But I think that relationship worked because obviously he loved being a mentor. That's kind of part of who he is. But I think it was also it was a give and take too. I think we worked really well together. We had lots of ideas together. We challenged each other. We were very, very direct and honest with one another. So, and I know it's hard to do that. We've had a long period of time where we had that relationship, but starting out, like, I think it's when you do find someone who's showing interest in being a mentor to you, to really value that, to show up. You know, I think a lot of us old people talk about youngsters and how they, like, you know, they feel entitled or they feel like ungrateful for opportunities. And I know when you're afforded those opportunities, to just really seize them and value them, to show up when your mentor is asking you to show up, to give back to your mentor, and just really make it a two-way relationship. Because my mentor-mentee relationship with my mentor changed my career and changed my life. And I think it can happen with anybody.
Yeah, for me, I feel like I've had a few mentors throughout my career. And I think it's really important to really amass that when, like, similar to, you know, what you said, Rudy, it's like when you form that connection with somebody, I think it's really important to kind of utilize that. For me, what was helpful in my career was being able to go to my different mentors and ask for their advice as I was maneuvering my career, specifically going from like one company to another. I think, you know, when you're younger, you don't know what you don't know, right? And I do feel like when you're interviewing, or, you know, when you're turning down a job, or when you are getting references and asking people to put in calls for you because, you know, like that helps when you like want a specific job, or, you know, you're dealing with somebody at work and you don't really know how to go about doing it. There is, you know, some, you know, there's obviously something to be said about experience, and not necessarily the right or the wrong way to do it, but, you know, giving that perspective, or sorry, rather getting that perspective from someone who has been through it, I think is really, really important, especially nowadays, because I think there's, you know, there's times when I see younger professionals, you know, maneuvering their career in a certain way, which sometimes can be, you know, like looked at as negative, whether it's like, I don't know, I can't think, I can't think of something right now, but like,
Sure.
just doing it a certain way rather, like, and so I think, just being able to go back to the different people and asking for their advice as you're doing these really major things within your career, I think is really important, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, Angela and Rudy, I think, to touch on your question, Erica, in my mind, it's sort of two biggest pieces of advice I would give you is, don't be afraid to fail, because the more things you try, that's the only way we learn in life. And moreover, though, I think it was a quote from Mike Dyson, is talking about discipline. Discipline is doing things that we hate, go to the gym, work out, do whatever. It's tough. The road is tough, but it's what we learn from those experiences. And, 2 points, internships, invaluable, what we learn in the classroom and then the application of that knowledge in the real world. Because when you intern, you get thrown into it, figure it out, trial by fire. A lot of times, if you're in, you got to find that solution. There's a deadline, you got to meet the budget. And sometimes, they don't want to hear it. There's an excuse. Oh, I forgot, it didn't work out. So, and it's sort of trial by fire and adapting and being quick on your toes and, echoing what Angela and Rudy said. So, but great question, Erica. And thanks for posing the question.
Yeah, thank you.
And Chase, I think, do we have one more question from Mark?
Yeah, I'm gonna pass the mic over to Mark, one of
Awesome.
our artists at Blue Buddha Entertainment, under the name Mr. Starbeast. How you doing, Mark?
Hey there, doing great today. How y'all doing? It's great to be here. Yeah, my question was, I'm just, as a music producer, I'm just really super curious about how like the writer strike is kind of affecting music production and shows and stuff. I'm just curious, like, is music still being like pitched during these times, or is it just kind of like, what's kind of going on over there?
Well, I can, Angela, were you gonna?
Oh, I was just going to say, not specifically to music, but just in terms of like how it's affecting, at Universal. I mean, obviously TV is being really, really affected more so than film. However, I do have a few projects. I mean, look, like the thing is like, I think everybody was kind of assuming that the strike was going to happen. So I know that there was a lot of kind of like pre-work that was done to try to minimize any kind of like major kind of halts in production. In terms of film, I do have like one project that did halt because we couldn't get the script there. And, we have also, which I didn't really think about, but we have a lot of like multi-hyphenate directors, like writer directors. And so I thought, I guess, like naively, it's like, okay, well, we could keep working with them as long as we're not asking them to like write something. But, there's a couple of people who don't want to, keep, cross the picket line and, things like that. So like, that's been, an interesting kind of, song and dance with how we proceed. But in terms of the music side, like it's business as usual, it doesn't affect animation because the writers are part of a different guild and union. And so we have a lot of animation in addition to like, I'm actually very excited about it. I'm working with John Woo right now on the remake of The Killer. And so that's one of our films that is going into production like here in a few weeks. And it's, like business as usual. So I think from the music perspective, it's it hasn't really halted in my experience.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thanks a lot.
And just want to give a shout out. Thanks so much to Rudy Chung from Netflix. Looks like he has to bow out in a short minute, but thank you, Rudy. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Sorry, I got to bounce a little early. Appreciate you guys. See you guys soon.
Yep. Thanks, Rudy. See you on the other side. But no, we went over, and thank you everybody for participating. It was, I know this is we just scratched the surface in this panel, and it was a great dialogue and continuing to thread the needle on a lot of topics that we talked about. and we'll continue this offline and online. And if anybody has any closing remarks, I can open it back up to the panelists. But I think, thank you. This was our inaugural panel. We're looking forward to next year, continuing to build on what we started today. And, similarly, Derek Basco and Casey Dunmore, and also we're going to have some other AAPI artists on our podcast. So offline, we're continuing this dialogue because this is a conversation we can go for hours, as you can see today. But thank you so much to everybody. If anyone has any closing remarks, would love, to hear. But thank you again for everyone participating.
Thank you, Blue Buddha. This has been really awesome. Thank you for having all of us. Also, I mean, the turnout was really great. I think everyone was really engaging, and this is awesome.
No, thanks, Jacky. It was
Yeah,
great to it goes like that. And thanks for Derek for connecting us with Jacky, Ruby, Angela, and it's so good to have everybody. And thank you so much. I really appreciate everybody. Happy AAPI month. We'll catch you on the other side. And yeah, thanks again. Namaste. Thank you guys so much.
Go.